So I wanted to show you a double display card, a square double display card that I saw the idea for on a UK demonstrator's website last year in November. She had originally got the idea from Susan, an Australian crafter who blogs under the name Blue Robot, and Susan originally did it in November 2009, and then Amanda in the UK redid it in November last year, so there must be something lucky in the Novembers. But this is the double display card, and you can see it just opens up and is just beautiful. I did one recently for my Nana's 90th birthday, and I also added stamping and other embellishments to it as well. So you can see how it concertinas out, and when it goes on display it actually stands very rigid. There's no moving or anything. Once it's on display, it's not about to fall over in just a second. So the basis of the card is 15 centimetres by 30 centimetres. Now, if you're like me and you use 12 by 12 cardstock, you do have to cut off the little tiny bit of the 12 by 12, because if it's not 30 centimetres, the measurements just won't work out. If you're following Susan's original tutorial from 2009, and I'll add that link to my blog, she does have it in imperial, so you don't need to trim off that tiny little bit. So the stamping trim is really good though anyway, because we've got imperial and metric, so it's very flexible like that. So the first thing I'm going to do is line this edge of the cardstock up to 2.5 centimetres. And I'm actually going to start my cutting from 2.5 centimetres. So I'm not starting it at 0, I'm starting it at 2.5, and I'm going down to 12.5 centimetres. And then I'm pulling the blade out, coming down to 17.5 centimetres, and then cutting again down to 27.5 centimetres. So I end up with 2 cuts. Yeah? And if you didn't know you could do that with the trimming blades, you learned something new. And we do exactly, I've just rotated it, so I've got my other cuts here, and we're going to do exactly the same on this side. So starting back, oh, that was a bit of a rude noise. Right, we'll start back up this side at 2.5 centimetres, cutting all the way down to 12.5, lifting it up 17.5 centimetres, push back down to cut down to 27.5 centimetres. So I've now got my cuts, which will form the top part of my card. Now we're going to turn it landscape, and we're going to start scoring, and I have to open out my trimmer so that I get the full 30 centimetre. Well, actually it's longer than 30 centimetres, it goes up to 36 centimetres, so that I can keep scoring all the way along this. We are going to, at 2.5 centimetres, and my light one is my scoring blade, don't mix that up, otherwise you're going to be a little bit sad when it comes to this part. So we're going to score from the top of the card down to this cut, so down to 2.5 centimetres with a score, and then we're going to do it from the 12.5 down to the edge of this card. So we've just scored on each side. That was at 2.5 centimetres. We're going to repeat it at 12.5 centimetres. So I can go from the bottom up to the cut line, and I can go the top down to the cut line. Move it along to 17.5 centimetres. And the directions will be on my blog, so don't get too stressed if you're not writing down or whatever. It's just more so you can see how it's done, and I'm a very visual person. Again, 0 down to 2.5, 12.5 down to 15, so we're getting the scores down into the cut. And the last one is at 27.5, making sure our cardstocks, so from the bottom up to 12.5 and down to 2.5. So we've now got are cuts and they're scored at each end. Okay. Now we need some scores all the way across our cardstock. So I'll put the blade back up. Back over here, 5 centimetres, the whole card. Move it across to 10 centimetres, the whole card. Move it across to 20 centimetres, whole card. And the last score line, and your head can stop spinning in just a minute with all the measurements, and that is all the cutting and scoring done. So let's have a look what that looks like compared to our finished one. So you can see it's then a matter of doing the folds. So this is the front, and I've actually put another piece over, so this is the front. So then we just do mountain and valley folds, mountain and valley folds. And the first time you do this it's a little bit crazy, but honestly once you've done a couple, and they are a little bit addictive, once you've done a couple it all works out and it doesn't look like some sort of Chinese puzzle. Alright, so let's move that one out the way. Now like I said, these front bits, just keep going on, I've moved everything now. These front bits aren't square, so we need to fix that, because otherwise we're not going to have a very good basis for building our card front on. Now I've got 28 pieces of cardstock and designer paper, and that's what I use because I tend to layer my cardstock up, but you can just do it with a single layer. Instead of using the designer paper, you can actually just stamp on the base cardstock, and I've also got some contrast cardstock in there as well. I chose to use the paper is the Gold Soiree Specialty. It's got beautiful gold throughout all of the designs, and if you ever wonder what layers of cardstock to contrast with the designer paper, I've got Calypso Coral and Garden Green. My tip is have a look on the back of your paper, designer series paper, and it's got all of the colours listed that are in the designer paper, and that's how I choose my contrast cardstock, my inks and my ribbons and anything else like that. It's just an easy reference and it's already written down. So I've got 2 pieces of Whisper White, which are 5 centimetres by 15 centimetres, and I'm just going to fast fuse these on just because I definitely don't want, I'm going to have to orientate this way, I definitely don't want these bits coming off. All the rest I'll put together with snail, but the fast fuse on the front, and remembering with the fast fuse to do your little check mark, otherwise you end up with a really, really horrible gluey effort. Okay, now I've managed to misalign something, but that's okay, we'll just keep going with it. Oops. So once you've had a practice with the fast fuse, it does go together really, really quickly. It's alright, I write all my little measurements on scrap pieces of paper so I don't forget them when I'm doing the videos. Otherwise, you know, I just prefer not to look silly. So these ones will all layer down. I've got 2 in the contrasting Garden Green, which will layer on my card front. They are 14 centimetres by 4 centimetres. And then I have to make the decision whether I'm going to put on the flowers on the front or if I'm going to put stripes. But I think I might put flowers because the flowers are really pretty. We've got a green panel, a Calypso Coral panel, and then a white panel for the centre. We've got the same on the sides, green, Calypso Coral, and again all of the measurements will be on my blog, and it will look a lot nicer when it's all glued together and it's not just... And I actually turned these ones to the other side just to give it a little bit of contrast, and I did the same with the little tiny bits that I add on these embellishments. So these are all layered with green, the garden green. So I've got 6 of those. And then I've got the flowers. Oops, I put the flowers up the right way. So pedantic. And then I'll just put the stripes here just to match. Oops. What have we got here? Some of the stripes have got a little bit, here we go. Stripes and flowers. Okay, so then that all gets adhered down. Now I might just do one of the card fronts just so that you can see, because you don't want to just sit here and watch me glue everything together. What I might do is I just stick the designer paper, I hope I'm still under the video, stick the designer paper onto this part. And I hold one end down and then wriggle it and then do that. Alright. And then I've got some Calypso Coral in the chevron ribbon, I think it's called. Pretty sure it's chevron ribbon. Now I will actually hold my ribbon down with a glue dot because I just find it easier to put a glue dot on each end and hold it down that way. So I'll have my chevrons. Doesn't really matter which way I have my chevrons going, does it? That way or that way? Anyway, I might put them this way down. I then got a 7/8 inch scallop circle. Stuck that down as well onto here, roughly in the middle. A 3/4 inch circle in the Calypso Coral, more glue dots. It's probably one of my favourite adhesives actually, is glue dots. It's terrible. And what I might do, because that ribbon's quite thick, is I might just get a glue dot and put it under so that it doesn't keep acting like a little trampoline bouncing up and down. And then I'm actually going to get one of the very, very beautiful, I don't know if you can quite see that, something borrowed embellishments. These are in the New Occasions catalogue and they are just beautiful. Very, very sparkly, and everyone likes sparkly. I think we're all part magpie, aren't we? Or bowerbird, depending on what part of the world you come from. 2 glue dots on the back, and I'm going to line mine up sort of like that. Okay, and then that will go on the front there as well. So you end up with that card, a lot simpler than it might look when you first make it. And when you're lining these up to make sure the embellishments are the same, I simply have it all ribboned up ready to go, push this one over, put this one over, and then you can eyeball straight across so that the embellishments match up. What I'll do is I'll actually finish this card and photograph it and pop it on my blog post, so that if you do want to see the finished card, I'll add a little bit of stamping as well. Knowing me, I'll add some sponging, and you can see the finished card as well. So I hope that helps. It's definitely not as hard as you probably thought, and I'd love to see your creations. If you make any, send them through to me. I'd love to see them. Bye bye.